Hey, supply chainers, wherever you are in the world, this is Sarah Barnes-Humphrey with you today. Are you ready? Let's talk supply chain. Hello, everyone, and happy Tuesday. Welcome to Thoughts and Coffee. My name is Sarah Barnes-Humphrey. I am the founder and host of Let's Talk Supply Chain, as well as the Blended podcast and the Blended Pledge, which is our new nonprofit. And the applications are going to be open soon. And we are giving away grants to diverse voices to say yes to speaking engagements. And we are going to be covering their travel. But before we get into anything, let's talk about Emerge. Emerge is proud to partner with Thoughts and Coffee to elevate our combined focus on empowering and growing meaningful relationships in the freight industry. The first and only freight-specific RFP platform, Emerge is reinventing freight procurement by offering solutions that enhance the spot and contract procurement process, enabling shippers to make the most strategic decisions possible, saving invaluable time and enhancing productivity. Learn more at emergemarket.com/thoughts and coffee. So we are back, and thanks to Audrey for hosting last week. She is back with me today, and I'm so honored and grateful that she took the helm last week, and they had a great conversation, Audrey and Amani, and I just thought it was so fantastic, and I hope you guys really enjoyed that as well. So what are we talking about this week? Well, it's a brand new month. So we have our Woman in Supply Chain episode with Maggie Petrovich of Emerge. This conversation was so much fun. I don't know if you've listened to it yet, but Maggie and I got on the phone and we just hit it off right away. We had so many similarities in our journey and in our story. And it was a really, really fun episode. So I hope you go and check it out. It's episode 260, wherever you subscribe to the Let's Talk Supply Chain podcast. You can also go to letstalksupplychain.com. Now, I don't know if you guys know this, but if you have a challenge in supply chain, you're looking for a solution, I have most likely had them on our show. So if you go to letstalksupplychain.com under listen, or if you click the search button, you can actually take a look and put in a keyword and search out some of the content we have on that particular solution as well. So go and check that out. And next we've got our follower of the month. So our follower of the month, we haven't even announced this on social media yet because we're a little bit behind because I had a few days off last week, goes to Rick Olson. So Rick Olson on LinkedIn, thank you so much for all of your participation in everything that we do last month for April, and you're going to get a mug. We're going to be sending that to you. I'm going to be reaching out in DMs today. So congratulations on that. So what's next? Well, we've got our events. Let's just do this really quickly. So on May 25th, I am going live for a webinar about going global, how and when to take your business to the world market. Now, you're not going to want to miss this because we're talking about what that means from employees and team members, as well as taking a look at brand new markets for your products. So if you're considering going into a new market and expanding what you do, you definitely want to go and check out this webinar. So AJ is going to put the link for this particular post in the comments. Go and check it out, register, sign up for that webinar as well. Now, we have some really, really big news. So Eric Johnson is going live this Friday at 10 a.m. Eastern on our channel, and he's actually going to go live twice a month now. So it's the first Friday of every month, the third Friday of every month, and in between we've got DC's action items, and then we've got Hope's no bullshipping. So what that means is we are going to be going live every single Friday of the month at 10 a.m. Eastern. So you're not going to want to miss that. Put that in your calendar. Come back and see what we've got going on for you. What else have we got? First things first, that is happening next week. That's with Rob Garrison of Mercado. And then, of course, we've got Coming in Hot. That just happened. So if you missed any of these episodes, go to the Let's Talk Supply Chain YouTube, and we've got it all there for you. What else is happening? Oh, that's right. While I have been traveling over the last couple of weeks, we hit 50,000 followers. And I just want to say thank you so much for all of the community support. We are so excited to have hit this really, 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 really big milestone. And we couldn't have done it without you. I couldn't have done it without my team. And we just love the community that we've built. So wanted to say a really, really big thank you. And then the other thing that we want to say before I bring up Audrey is congratulations to AJ. He got married last Friday and it looked like an amazing event. He's dancing around in the background. You guys can't see that, but he is definitely dancing around, and just wanted to say congratulations. So without further ado, it is time to bring up the one, the only Audrey Ross. Hello, how are you doing?
Hello. Good. How are you?
Good. I am happy to be back, let me tell you. But you did an amazing job last week. Tell me a little bit about how that went.
Yeah, so of course it was such a pleasure to have Amani on. It's always great to talk to her. She's just such a dynamic person, and we were so lucky to meet her at TPM in March earlier this year. So it was a great conversation. Her focus, of course, is on trucking and transportation. She's based out of Minnesota, and so having that conversation and insight as to, there's a lot of things going on with trucking. We keep hearing, for years we've heard about labor shortages, what that means, how she does, sort of retention and engagement with her kind of staff and colleagues was really insightful. And so, yeah, just a great conversation all around.
I love it. I can't wait. Amani is going to be in our Woman in Supply Chain series. She's also going to be on an episode of Blended. So that is not the first or last time that we've heard from her, because she's got a lot to say and a lot to contribute to the industry, and super excited about that. So for anybody who doesn't know you, can you do a little bit of an introduction? They might think that you're in a store right now. So the introduction is probably a good idea.
So my name is Audrey Ross. I'm here in Toronto. Actually, I'm out at our Mississauga office this morning. So we've got one of our sort of company displays behind me. So we were using this for when we were all on Zoom and doing sort of virtual trade shows and meetings. So it's a great space to be in. I'm the import and export compliance manager at Orchard Custom Beauty. And so, yeah, we do a lot of cosmetics, beauty tools, bath accessories, which you can, if you're watching this video, you can see it in the background. So yeah, lots of fun. We ship worldwide, and keeps me busy. Even this morning, keeping busy, even with that China holiday. So,
can you talk to us a little bit about this China holiday? I didn't even know.
Yeah, sure.
But apparently, so it's a holiday in China. Plus, we've got lockdowns happening, so everybody's kind of feeling it right now.
Yeah, so there's still some ongoing effects from lockdowns especially sort of in the Shanghai region, into Ningbo as well. So the ports seem to be clicking through. Factories somehow seem to be working, but not without some sacrifice and compromise. We've got sort of word that a lot of the factories are doing, they're staying in dorms. So they're essentially living at their workplace in order to be sort of in a bubble or cohort, so that they don't have to do the testing and face the restrictions of sort of being in their houses. So a lot of the stuff that we've all experienced sort of through the pandemic, with keeping a small bubble and having all these testing protocols. And then, of course, May 1st, for a lot of places, is a really significant labor and worker kind of day of acknowledgement. And so in China, they have, it's essentially the first week of May, so the sort of April 30th to, I don't know, May 4th ish. And so again, it's a break for workers sort of outside. Here in Canada, we have a lot of stuff around, different traditional holidays or kind of religious things, and there it's sort of this is the sort of labor break, which is good. It just means that you have to remember and kind of work around that. So I have a little air shipment that we kind of didn't get out fast enough. And so we're having a little bit of a headache this week, because we're like, okay, when's the flight? And it's like, there's no one there to answer, so we're which is good. It's good that everybody gets a break. So, but
And
also
I'm
I need that.
so grateful for you sharing these stories because you're not
Yeah.
the only one going through this,
Oh
and I'm
no.
just
Yeah.
hopeful that, people in the audience are listening and really understanding what supply chainers are going through in a
Yeah.
variety of different ways, and I think it's good that we just, share these kind of things. The other
Uh,
thing I wanted to do was give a shout out to Envase Technology and
oh yeah.
Firmament Group because I was supposed to be there last Tuesday because of circumstances, I wasn't able to be on stage,
Uh,
and just wanted to give them a shout out and, public apology for not being able to be on stage with them last week. So let's get to our poll of the week. So I
oh
haven't
yeah.
even looked at this yet. I don't even know what AJ
You haven't looked at.
posted,
It's been like all over the LinkedIn. So yeah.
but apparently we asked, what was college to you? Now, that's a funny question because I did
Mhm.
all of my college by correspondence. So
Hmm.
either in class, like night courses, or I did it by correspondence at home. And so college to me was definitely none of those. Well, it might have been study, 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 but I
Yeah.
didn't really get the typical college experience. But we got 511 votes and we still have a week to go. So 56% of you said fun and exciting, which makes me think that I probably should have, gone
There's a
and
bit of
done that
FOMO.
experience maybe.
Yeah.
32% of you said study, study, study. 6% of you said scary and unfamiliar. And another 6% of you said, well, dot, dot, dot. So I will get into those dot, dot, dots in a minute. But what was college to you, Audrey?
Gosh, I think I was one of the people who put like scary and overwhelming. It was a really difficult time. I dropped some of that in the comments. I really struggled with going. I feel like I should have waited. There was a lot of pressure,
Hmm.
like a ton of. I felt a ton of pressure and expectation to go. So it wasn't like, I know a lot of people have this like, oh yeah, I'm going off. I'm going to explore the world. I'm going to go and do this. And I was just like, it was a lot. So yeah, but I can appreciate too, like there's a bit of FOMO because I didn't get to do like a dorm experience, and people really seem to have good
Oh,
dorm
yeah.
experiences. So even I did go
Mhm.
up to Carleton and in Ottawa and sort of move away from home, but I couldn't. I had a whole issue with getting into the dorm. Like the whole thing was like the universe was like, you probably shouldn't be doing this and set up all these obstacles. And I was kind of pushing through anyways, and it it had the result it did. And I wouldn't say I regret. Initially you're kind of like, what am I doing? This is a mess. Because of course you're 24 and you're like, this was a disaster.
Yeah.
But I think all of us, which if you went, if you didn't go, whatever you sort of journey you've kind of been on, you kind of have to appreciate what you learned. And I
Yep.
learned a lot about myself. I learned a lot about, what my life might be like. And,
Yep.
so I can't say that I regret it. It just certainly was not the traditional or ideal experience.
And everything happens for a reason. It's like when you
Yes,
see everything that's happening on Instagram and you're like,
yeah,
"Oh my god, their life is amazing," but you have no idea what
yeah,
they've been through, what they're going through right
no,
now. But you're
no,
definitely not alone. Tempest said fun and exciting when I first started, but I wasn't ready back then and wish I would have waited. Audria said fun and exciting, but I wish I didn't take life so seriously back then and just enjoyed myself a little bit. And Anna also said it was a time of self-doubt and low self-esteem,
yes,
but also fun and exciting as well. Robert says he's currently attending. Rebecca says inaccessible. And Lisa says lots and lots of work. So if you want to go and check that out, we'll be posting that link as
yeah.
well. We had a lot of really, really, really great
It's
comments. And
really interesting. Like there were people who were like military, people who, like it wasn't even an option. People who are doing it now. Like it's fascinating.
it's so fascinating. And I love the question. I mean,
Yeah,
kudos to AJ for asking
yeah,
it and really, really enjoyed that conversation. So, the next thing that we're talking about is my Sunday post. So, every Sunday, I
yes,
spark conversations through talking about different things like leadership. And this particular one, everybody knows that I do like Adam Grant because I
mhm,
do feature him quite often. And this one talks about burnout. It talks about pay. It talks about how the great resignation is driven by toxic cultures. But he also talks about what makes a culture toxic because we talk about the great resignation, but we don't necessarily talk about the different things that are going into it, right? Disrespectful, non inclusive, unethical. If
yeah,
leaders don't take toxicity at least as seriously
mhm,
as performance, Houston, we have a problem. And it's so, so very true. the way we treat people. And I commented a few times, we had a ton of comments on this, and I commented a few times that you just can't get away with it anymore. And if you are getting away with it, obviously you're surrounded by the wrong people. But it's up to the leaders to speak up and speak out. And that's how we're going to be making a difference, calling that behavior out and being respected for being able to do that in a
Yes.
respectful way. Right?
Yeah.
We're not just doing this to point fingers and all that kind of stuff, but we need to educate. We need to be able to make that change. And there's a few things that we need to be able to do that. Quickly, what did you think about this before we get to our first article?
Yeah, I mean, it's Adam Grant's great. He really is able to like pop these little ideas, and you're like, oh, I really need to think about that. That's fascinating. But yeah, toxic workplaces. Like, people are leaving. Why are they leaving? Understand why people might be leaving. And yes, it's been a post-pandemic. Everybody, wants to change. So there's that. But like, you do know when like places are disrespectful, and we have to, as a community, I think it's important too when people giving people the space to outline why they left, what the boundaries that were broken. Sometimes we have to name names. It's uncomfortable, but if we're not going to be having these uncomfortable conversations, if companies aren't going to be willing to grow and develop, then they're going to get left behind, or things are going to get stifled, and then we're just in the same negative place all over again. So
they're going to lose good people.
yeah, right? And it's like flip the desk and like rant about them on LinkedIn, but in some cases it's like you have to kind of warn people, or you can be given the outlet to say like this is not acceptable, and they didn't listen. There was no move to improvement, and no, please don't work there because they're it's not great.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, let's get to our first article. So the first one talks about how the Vietnam Logistics Business Association, which I didn't even know was a thing, but they are planning to spend 1.5 billion. So first of all, where did they get this 1.5 billion to buy ships? So they're going to build new ships, they're going to buy old ships, and they're going to rent and buy containers to save money, which is crazy. And I think it's all sparked because they want to sell into Russia. From what I'm understanding from this particular article, everybody else is pulled out, and then they're looking to hopefully open up a route.
Or no, they just want to go to Europe. They want to fill the gap from Europe.
Okay, so I got that one wrong.
Yeah. I think it seems like it's government procurement. So it's government subsidies, right? So they're going to recreate what China's done, what Korea has their own, or had been supporting pre-Hanjin. Some of us know about Hanjin. Sort of an alliance, right? So with investment subsidies, those kinds of government programs.
So what it's going to do is it's going to open up routes between the Far East and particular European ports. I think one of them could be Russia, because they did mention Russia in this particular article.
Yeah.
So what do you think about this? I mean, an actual business association buying their own ships and being able to move product back and forth to Europe. What do you think?
Well, I think it's a good avenue for them. I think it gives them some control maybe that they didn't have. It's not a large either GDP wise, population wise. It's not exactly a large country.
And they have a small port. From what I understood,
they've got some restrictions. They've got some restrictions because they've got a 9.5 depth on one of the more popular ports. So they have to sort of be mindful of like a lot of the boats that they're talking about renting and buying are on the smaller side, right? You're looking at I think it was like 5,000 to 8,000 TEUs, where we're used to seeing stuff like the Ever Given, which is like a 20 something thousand TEU boat. Not that that's always the best, because you have other risks with that. But it's an interesting prospect, and to think over the shifting supply chains. A lot of people are talking about moving out of China. A lot of people have moved into Vietnam. Vietnam has done some great stuff on supplementing their infrastructure. But a lot of people have said like they can't move everything to Vietnam because the infrastructure isn't quite there yet.
Yeah.
Right. So
true. Well, and they said in the first year they're looking at 14 vessels, and I think by 3 years from there, now they're talking about those Panamax, which is the ones that you're talking about, which is thousands and thousands and thousands of TEUs, sort of like 3xing what they're looking to do in the first year by year 3, which is pretty crazy. I mean, it just goes to show how much trade is actually moving and how trade is moving through the Far East and what they have their eye on with
Yeah.
Europe, and how Vietnam has really, said, wait a second, we're going to be a major hub for manufacturing. We need to
Yeah.
get on this now. And their local logistics business association, which
Yeah.
you said potentially has ties to the government, okay,
Yeah.
but it's a local business association that's
Yeah.
really taking action into their own hands and getting their own vessels and things like that, which I thought was fascinating.
Yeah. Yeah. It's going to be interesting to see this play out.
It definitely is. All right. So the next one is what everybody has been waiting for, because we're talking about ripping apart washing machines. Why are we doing that? Well, tech firms are buying brand new washing machines. Why? For their microchips. And they haven't named name in this particular article, but there's a car manufacturer that is apparently doing this. And it's interesting, right? Because in this article, they talk about procurement teams and procurement teams trying to find microchips in the microchip shortage and sort of pulling out their hair and going, I don't know what to do. You've got $100,000 car in a manufacturing facility that cannot be sold until we find these microchips. Like, talk about pressure,
Yeah.
right? Like, procurement teams are really, really seeing the pressure right now. And so, one of the ways that they have decided to supplement some of the microchips is to buy a whole bunch of brand new washing machines for their chips, break it down, grab the microchips, and move on. And it's interesting because also in this article, they talk about a company that makes washing machines and how their first quarter earnings were like crazy, and nobody really understood why until we started to break it down and take a look. So what did you think about this, Audrey?
Well, this is a great article. It covers a few pieces. One, it covers sort of what's happening in semiconductors, which has been interesting. We've all heard it was one of the next to toilet paper. It's kind of been one of the more popular supply chain topic items.
Mhm.
And two, it gets into how beleaguered the quote beleaguered procurement teams are, and trying to come up with this idea. And it's like, who had this eureka moment at the company to be like, wait a second, and it kind of goes into, were they at their washing machine, like, and then it's like, wait, I could just rip this out. Two, I'm kind of fascinated, like, if they're then taking the washing machines, putting them on the assembly line so that their techs can like rip them apart, and then like it immediately moves like back
Right.
into like that piece is kind of interesting. And
Yeah.
then it goes into a conversation around sort of globalization, and what sort of how the semiconductor thing is work, how some of the restrictions and new kind of policies that we're seeing come into play might be further affecting the supply chain. What that's going to, sort of, it goes into history, it goes into future. It's a great article all around.
I thought it was a really, really great
Yeah.
article. What they said was microchips are found in cars, kitchen appliances, TVs, smart speakers,
Yeah.
thermostats, light bulbs, and apparently dog collars.
Of course.
So, I mean, if you really need to, instead of washing machines, you can go hit up the dog stores and grab all of the dog collars that have the microchips if you need some microchips, I guess, because
Yeah.
they're going to run out of washing machines at some point with microchips. I mean, it's only a matter of time. And actually, I'm surprised that they can find them, because
Yeah.
there's a lot of people without washing
Washing
machines that
machines
have
right
been
now.
waiting for months, and now you know where your washing machines are going. They are
Yeah.
going to the big car manufacturers because they need to rip them out, rip the microchips out. And the other thing is, though, is what you're right. What do they do with the rest of the washing
Yeah.
machine after they pull out? And in
Oh,
this article, it says, oh, we'll deal with that tomorrow.
yeah.
But I think we need to deal with that today, because we also don't want that to turn into waste. If you can take the rest of the washing machine and turn it into something else, I would really, really, really hope that they're doing that. Or maybe they're breaking it down and reselling it, reselling parts, different parts, things like that. I don't know. So I wish this article had gone into a little bit more about what they're doing with machines after the fact, because I'm a
Yeah.
little bit concerned about waste. But what they were also saying is that it takes 2 years to build a factory, a microchip factory. And I don't know if you guys remember, but a couple of months ago, I was talking about a whole bunch of different companies that were putting in billions and billions of dollars to make those factories. But of course, that's going to take a while, especially if it takes 2 years to build. But they're saying that the market for microchips is going to double by 2030. That is huge. And that actually gives us cause and reason why those companies are going to spend the money that they're looking to spend. This article goes into a little bit more companies that are going to be spending the billions as well, 28 billion by one company to build a microchip factory as well. But the other component to this that we haven't heard a ton about is that there's a 1-year wait for machines that produce the microchips. So even if you build the factories and that takes 2 years, you've still got a year to wait. I mean, you'd have to build the factory and then put your order in, and then hopefully it'll get there by the end of the 2 years.
Take the risk and pre-order the machinery before you've built the factory.
Okay, well, hashtag supply chain issues. Pre-order all of your machines and you will hopefully get it by...
Because they're going to be late too, so...
Anyways, so that's what is happening. So if you're waiting for a washing machine, the car makers are jumping the line and they're taking your washing machine away, out from under you. So you might want to call the manufacturer and complain. But really great article. Really,
it's a good one.
You go and check that out. All right. So the third article is about Vancouver's jammed warehouses. Now, I know most of the audience is in the States, and this is a Canadian article. However, this really goes to show what is happening around North America when it comes to inflation and when it comes to warehouses. So just as an example, we're using Vancouver and Canada as a bit of an example, but we're seeing the same kind of numbers in the US as well. So the vacancy rate in Vancouver is below 1%. And they're saying that the rents are increasing for commercial space up to 40% right now. And the average home in Vancouver goes for 1.4 million. So that just gives you an idea of how much land actually costs and how we're potentially not really going to see too much more development there. And if we do, it's still going to take some time. So those vacancy rates are not going anywhere for a long time. But they're also talking, so they took Toronto into account as well. And if you don't know Toronto very well, they talked about some companies that are looking at London, Ontario. So London, Ontario is about 200 kilometers, right? 200 kilometers away from Toronto. And so they're saying that companies are looking at places like London, Ontario, that far out of big cities to try to find that space. However, when you do that, then you run into labor issues. And you run into the inflation with gas prices because you're no longer close to a hub to get product out by air maybe or ocean, and you have to truck that product somewhere else. So it's really kind of a sticky situation, which is what they're talking about in this particular article as to what to do. What do you think, Audrey?
Yeah, I mean, so 200 kilometers for our friends is about 125 miles. And so when you think about that, you've got these hubs like Vancouver's also maybe similar to Seattle, maybe similar to other cities. It's geographically very interesting. And so because of the way the mountains are and the ocean is, there's not a lot of space. And so it's the kind of place where it's like we've built this sort of really well done inbound port that has a ton of volume, but there's actually not a lot of warehousing. There's not a lot of transportation. And typically that's why things kind of move on to rail so that it moves right out of the city directly. But yeah, what this article goes into all of these sort of concerns. Okay, so I build a facility 100 miles or 200 kilometers away from the sort of downtown so that I'm saving on, I'm in a, wider area, but then all of those, who's going to work there? Who's going to drive? Who wants to do that commute? Then the fuel prices are up. How are we going to get it out to our next distribution center? So it really addresses all of the kind of, concerns around the costs and the rising costs. And there's no simple solution.
No, and so they talked to the CEO of a trucking company called Mullen Group. I don't know if I think they're Canadian. But they said that they stopped buying trucks because there's just no drivers. So they have enough work to be able to buy more assets, to be able to, deliver more products, but they can't do it because they're the labor issues and not being able to find the drivers. So I want to do a really so I would highly recommend you go and check out this article. I want to give a quick shout out to Kimberly and Michael over on my personal LinkedIn. Thanks so much for joining us today. Next week, guess who's going to be with me? It is Susan Walsh, the classification guru. And we're going to be talking all stuff data and supply chain and technology. And so I hope you all come back to be with us next week for what we're going to be talking about. I don't even know because I haven't even found the articles yet. I got to do that today. So your guess is as good as mine. But with Susan, it's always going to be fun. So Audrey, thanks so much for joining us this week.
Thanks, Sarah.
Again, so much for hosting last week. And everybody who joined us today, thanks so much for being with us today. Also want to give a shout out to our new audience over on TNC Radio who is listening to Thoughts and